here. I want to be a part of that ceremony. I just feel like it's just everything that we have been learning about Africans in general. They do every single thing with a purpose.
Oh
And to
yeah,
pray over your coffee in the morning,
yeah. Say
I
that.
like
Yeah.
that.
What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchet REACT and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video. If you're new to us
And we're new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
In order to give for anyone, not black or white, you just have to be a person becoming friendly.
There are more than 80 ethnic groups and languages in Ethiopia, and one of the most diverse places in the country is the Omo Valley. I recommend flying to Jinka and ending the trip in Arba Minch. Make sure to buckle up since you can expect to spend around 4 or 5 hours a day in a 4x4 on many bumpy yet scenic roads. From the stunning mountain ranges surrounding the town of Konso to the vast Omo River, all the way to the huge Lake Chomo near Arba Minch, the landscapes are both ever-changing and ready for once-in-a-lifetime adventures. Ideally, you'll want to spend at least a week in the Omo Valley to make the most out of your visit, and to ensure that your stay is as economically beneficial as possible to your host communities. Before traveling here yourself, there are many nuances to be aware of when it comes to visiting any of the local tribes. If done irresponsibly, mass tourism can negatively affect the people who live in these rural communities by promoting a type of human safari where tourists only take advantage of the communities, point cameras in their faces, and then leave without paying them a fair wage. I have several pieces.
Since she mentioned that, we did an actual video about tourism where they go and they do shoots on people and everything, and they're not even like they're literally poor.
Tourism.
Poverty tourism is what it's called. Thank you, babe. And they literally poor. They're not having everything they need to survive and thrive. And people are taking photos of this, making merch out of this type of stuff. So it's interesting she mentioned that.
Yeah. Very sad.
Of advice to avoid participating in this type of travel. First of all, the only way you should travel in this region is to hire local guides who are from the Omo Valley. It's important that they have grown up practicing the same culture and speaking the same language in order to help you navigate through the different situations you'll find yourself in, whether you're in a local market or inside their family's home. I have linked a few reliable tour operators like Abyssinian Nomads in the description. Only travel in small groups and be sure to respect the locals' privacy, especially if they don't want their photo taken. Take the time to ask people their names, have genuine conversations with your local guides to gain a deeper insight into the cultural practices and traditions of the various tribes living in the Omo Valley. I personally had the most amazing interactions with the Ari and Hama tribes, and I highly recommend spending a few days to connect with each of them. In some ways, tourism has actually encouraged the tribes to maintain traditions that otherwise may have been lost as globalization becomes more prominent. Be aware that some tribes have now become tourism dependent, with payment from tourists being their only reliable source of income when the weather becomes inhospitable for cattle and crops. Withdrawing tourism completely from the region could be disastrous for communities who depend on this money to feed their families and to support their farming practices. The key to traveling here is to only participate in experiences mindfully and to treat indigenous people with the same respect you would like to receive yourself. The Omo Valley is absolutely incredible, and the next place you definitely want to add to your bucket list is the Simien Mountains. 40 million years ago, in the far north of Ethiopia, volcanic eruptions began the formations of the misty, jagged peaks and untouched forests we see today as the epic Simien Mountains. Hiking in the Simien Mountains is a highlight of traveling in Ethiopia. Not only because the mountains are vast and beautiful, but because the grassy plateaus are home to the Galata baboons, also known as the bleeding heart monkeys. This type of baboon can only be found in the Ethiopian highlands, and here you can even sit with large groups of them, which is a once-in-a-lifetime wildlife experience. However, don't expect them to pay too much attention to you. They have much more important matters to attend to, such as eating grass and grooming each other. The closest big city to the national park is Gondar, so you'll fly there from Addis Ababa. It is possible to trek in the Simians solo, but you will be required to hire an armed escort. Personally, I like having local guides who can teach me more about the culture and can translate when I want to interact with other locals. It's also nice to have someone else arrange aspects of the trip like accommodation, especially if you want to camp and you weren't already traveling with all the necessary gear. I recommend staying for a minimum of 3 days depending on your interest level, and you can expect to pay roughly $200 including tips if you travel with a tour and less than $100 or so if not. The rainy season runs from May until mid-September. After that, the mountains turn beautifully green and stay lush until December or January. So if you're interested in seeing the landscape during its peak beauty, mid-September to January would be the ideal time to hike the Simien Mountains. But it is also the high season, and from what I've heard, the mountains can get pretty packed. We traveled there in late April, and although it was golden brown and a bit rainy, we had the entire place to ourselves. We are taking a brief intermission from exploring the mountains of Ethiopia because, as always, girls gotta eat, but also because I have some good news. We have a sponsor because you amazing people keep using my link when joining.
Alright, so I want to mention real quick, you guys don't have a sponsor to go ahead and check her channel out. Everything that she got talked about is in her description box. I think y'all guys may find something highly interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying, Skillshare has thousands of inspiring classes to help you. Dart is at the first already done my links who might be interested. Most travelers fly into Ethiopia via Addis Ababa, but not many choose to stay a while before heading off on the many different adventures spread throughout the country. I highly recommend cooling off here for at least a few days and exploring some of the city's ancient relics and urban vibrancy. Sitting on the highlands adjacent to the Great Rift Valley, Addis Ababa is home to more than 5 million people sprawled across 200 miles. An interesting aspect of Addis Ababa and Ethiopia as a whole is that it's one of the only African countries which has never been colonized. This contributes greatly to why Ethiopian culture and traditions are so unique and have barely any foreign influence. There are many different types of accommodation throughout the city, from guest houses to luxury hotels, so it can fit any type of budget that suits you. It isn't necessary to hire a guide, unless of course you want to, while exploring the city. Don't forget to visit the variety of historical and cultural attractions, including the busy Mercato, which is considered to be the largest open-air market in Africa. And you'll also want to visit the atmospheric Piazza, the city's old town. The main highlight in Addis Ababa for me, since I've always been fascinated with anthropology, was visiting the Ethiopian National Museum, where you can see the real skeleton of Lucy, the 3.2 million year old fossil of our human ancestor, one of the oldest ever discovered right here in Ethiopia. Back out on the streets, you can expect the strong aroma of coffee around every corner, and you should definitely stop in for the traditional coffee ceremonies. Meanwhile, colorful Ethiopian food and music are a constant throughout the city, and I highly recommend going out.
Hey, if you don't know by now, coffee is like a staple in Ethiopia. So if you out there, like, never time you should not go there without having a cup. At least one, because you're going to be around it so often.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I do want to do. And it don't really have to just be in Ethiopia. Don't have a date for Ethiopia yet.
Fact, yeah.
But here, I want to be a part of that ceremony. I just feel like it's just everything that we have been learning about Africans in general. They do every single thing with a purpose. And to pray over your coffee in the morning.
Yeah, say that.
I like that. It's just a practice that I just want to experience with them at least once.
Nah, facts.
At a club called Fendika. Whether you're drawn to this city by its history, the nightlife, or its amazing foods, there's always plenty to discover.
Okay, where we at right now?
Oh, we saw this before, babe.
Okay. Where we at with it? What's this?
I want to say the lava lake.
One place that remains on my bucket list in Ethiopia is the Danakil Depression. I was unable to travel there during my trip, unfortunately due to conflict in multiple regions, which is actually a very good learning lesson for those of you who want to travel to these more off the beaten path countries like Ethiopia. I always highly recommend having a local contact or fixer that has, a good understanding of the different political situations and can tell you where to go and also where not to go. There are basically two different ways of reaching the Danakil Depression, one from the north and one from the south. Unfortunately, the northern region, called the Tigray region, has, at the time of filming this, been experiencing intense conflict for months now. So we planned on traveling to the Danakil area from the south, and unfortunately a few days before our departure a more local conflict erupted and canceled our trip. There were still a few of us in my group who debated flying to the Tigray region to Mekelle and making the 9.5-hour drive each way to make this once-in-a-lifetime trip happen. And as someone who has had experiences being too close for comfort in these more conflict-oriented situations, I can personally tell you that it is in no way worth it to subject yourself to that kind of stress and anxiety. These places like the Danakil Depression are amazing, but they are in no way worth risking your life for. So when you do have locals tell you that you are, should not be traveling to these places, please do take their recommendations because it can be very dangerous from time to time. And I'm still going to recommend traveling to the Danakil Depression because it is a popular place to go in Ethiopia, and I hope that there will be a more safe environment to travel through very soon, because this is also an incredibly significant place because it's where we discovered Lucy, which is one of the oldest and most intact hominids that we've ever discovered, which suggests that over 3 million years ago humans came from this area of Ethiopia and its surrounding countries, which is also why Ethiopia is known as the land of origins. Last but not least, one place you absolutely cannot miss while traveling in Ethiopia is the rock churches of Lalibela. This mountainous landscape feels riddled with mystery and frozen in time. I had seen so many photos of the famous rock churches, everywhere from National Geographic to Lonely Planet, and yet it still took my breath away the first time I saw them for myself. If there was ever to be an 8th wonder of the world, St. George's monolithic, cross-shaped church would surely deserve to win the prize. Unless you're on a very tight budget and have a lot of extra time on your hands, I recommend flying to Lalibela from Addis Ababa rather than taking a bus. If you do opt to travel overland, I highly recommend inquiring to local tour operators about any security issues during your specific time of travel, since conditions can change rapidly in this region. Lalibela can be visited during any time of the year, although the tunnels can get a bit slippery during the rainy season. I highly recommend visiting for the Sunday Mass when the churches are filled with locals adorned by white robes, but just remember to wear the appropriate clothing that covers shoulders, knees, and for women, covers your hair. If you're interested in photography, you should stay in Lalibela for a minimum of 3 days. I stayed here for 5 or 6 days and it barely felt like enough time to see everything. There are a total of 11 rock churches connected by tunnels and caves, and exploring the entire complex was a highlight of my trip to Ethiopia. Again, there are plenty of options for accommodation throughout Lalibela, and it's possible to travel here on a budget while staying at guest houses. Also, most hotels are within walking distance of the churches, so there's not much need for transportation, but if you're feeling lazy due to the elevation, you can always take a tuk-tuk, which are also quite affordable. There is a fee to enter the churches, but it is not mandatory to go with a tour, although I do recommend hiring a local guide for the afternoon to tell you more in-depth stories about its history. If possible, I recommend visiting during one of the big religious festivals throughout the year to see the churches lit up with candles and prayers. Since Ethiopia was one of the first countries to adopt Christianity, the churches here are some of the oldest in the world, and they're still being used today, nearly 1,000 years since they were carved directly out of the mountain. I traveled to Lalibela in April, which happened to be during the time of Fasika, which is also known as the Ethiopian Easter celebration, and I would highly recommend it as it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to subscribe.
Again, man, make sure you guys check our channel out. Hey, look, a lot to take away from it, but I think she ended it so beautifully with the church and the people gathering. It's unification here. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, definitely.
It's beautiful, bro. And then being that Ethiopia is one of the ones who was the first to take on Christianity. So we all know this history when it comes to that. You know what I'm saying? So
yes, and I believe we have watched the Easter celebration. It was a while ago. So yeah, go search for that one. I may link it down in the comment section below.
Yeah.
But it has been great learning so much about Ethiopia this last few weeks. Some of the things in the video we've already covered on the channel. Yeah. But it was cool, her tips and things, because she is a person who has traveled every country on our planet. So it was nice to hear what she had to say about Ethiopia and her tips and, you know, her advice on traveling there. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll see you soon.
Peace.